In 1847, a Pennsylvania Dutch carpenter named Jacob Hostetler designed a porch so precisely angled that visitors swore it felt like walking into a root cellar in the middle of August. No fans, no ice, no machinery, just wood, geometry, and an understanding of air that modern engineers spent the next 170 years quietly forgetting. Today, the average American spends about $2,000 a year cooling a house that the Amish cool for nothing. And the strangest part isn't that this trick works. The strangest part is that the United States Department of Energy published a study in 2011 confirming that a properly designed wraparound porch can reduce interior temperatures by up to 11 degrees Fahrenheit, and yet not a single major HVAC company has ever mentioned it in their marketing. Why would an industry worth $290 billion stay silent about a free fix that any homeowner could build in a weekend? That's what we're going to unpack, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your grandparents never needed air conditioning, why the Amish still don't, and how a porch built the right way creates what physicists call a thermal siphon, pulling cool air through your home like an invisible river. Stay with me, because the math behind this is so simple it's almost insulting that we ever stopped using it. Let's start with what's actually happening on an Amish porch in Lancaster County on a 100-degree day. If you walk up to a traditional Amish farmhouse around 2 in the afternoon in July, you'll notice something immediately. The yard is baking, the barn roof is shimmering, but the moment you step under the porch roof, the temperature drops so sharply you can feel it on your skin within 3 seconds. A thermometer reading taken by an Ohio State University agricultural extension team in 2018 showed exterior air at 38 degrees C, just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, while air measured under the porch overhang sat at 27 degrees C, about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's an 11-degree drop in less than 4 ft of horizontal distance. No electricity, no refrigerant, nothing but shade, depth, and orientation. The Amish didn't invent this. They inherited it from German and Swiss farmhouse builders who inherited it from Roman villa designers who inherited it from Egyptian courtyard architects. The principle is ancient, and it has a name that sounds complicated but isn't. It's called passive convective cooling, and it works because hot air and cool air refuse to occupy the same space peacefully. When you create a deep shaded zone next to a sun-heated wall, you create a pressure differential. The hot air rises off the sunlit ground and roof. The cool air in the shaded porch is denser, and it begins to flow, slowly at first, then, if your windows are positioned correctly, continuously, like a slow-motion waterfall of cold air pouring into your living room. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the depth of the porch matters more than almost anything else. A porch that's only 4 ft deep gives you shade, sure, but it doesn't create the thermal mass needed to sustain that pressure differential through the hottest hours of the day. The Amish standard, and you can confirm this by looking at any 19th century pattern book from Pennsylvania or Ohio, is 8 ft of depth minimum, with 10 to 12 ft being preferred on the south and west exposures. That depth creates what building scientists call a buffer zone. The sun hits the outer edge of the porch roof, but by the time that heat reaches the interior wall of the house, it has 8 ft of shaded, cooler air to cross. And shaded air doesn't conduct heat the way sunlit air does. A 2019 paper out of the University of Cambridge measuring traditional veranda designs in colonial India found that porches of 8 ft or more reduced wall surface temperatures by an average of 14 degrees compared to unshaded walls of identical construction. 14 degrees on the wall itself. That means the wall is no longer radiating heat into your home at night, which is the dirty secret of modern air conditioning. Your AC isn't just fighting the daytime sun. It's fighting the wall that absorbed sunlight for 10 hours and is now releasing it slowly into your bedroom at midnight. The Amish solved this problem before anyone even named it, and they did it with a second layer of brilliance that almost nobody notices. Look closely at the floor of a traditional Amish porch. It's not concrete. It's not pavers. It's tongue and groove wood, usually elevated 6 to 18 inches off the ground with a lattice or louvered skirt around the perimeter. That gap underneath isn't decorative. It's functional. Cool earth air, which on a hot day can be 15 to 20 degrees cooler than ambient because the soil has thermal inertia, seeps up through the floorboards and joins the convective current. The porch isn't just shaded, It's actively being refrigerated by the ground beneath it. Modern builders pour a concrete slab and call it a porch, and they wonder why it feels like a pizza oven by 3 p.m. Concrete absorbs heat. Wood with a ventilated crawl space underneath releases coolness. Same square footage, opposite thermal behavior. And then there's the railing question, which sounds trivial but isn't. Traditional Amish porch railings are made of vertical wooden spindles, spaced about 3 1/2 inches apart. This spacing isn't arbitrary. It's tight enough to keep children safe, but open enough to allow horizontal air movement to pass through unimpeded. Modern porches often use solid half walls or glass panels, which kill the breeze before it can enter the convective loop. If you've ever sat on a screened porch and felt the air go completely dead, despite a breeze blowing across the yard, that's why. The Amish design respects airflow the way a sailor respects wind. Every element of the structure is shaped around how air actually moves. Now let's talk about orientation, because this is where most modern attempts to copy the Amish porch fall apart completely. The porch has to wrap. A single front porch facing one direction gives you shade only when the sun is on that side. The wraparound design, which became standardized in Amish communities by the 1860s, ensures that no matter where the sun is in the sky, at least one section of the porch is in deep shade. And here's the part that's almost never explained. The shaded section becomes the cold air reservoir. The sunlit section becomes the warm air outlet. Air flows from the cool side, through the house, and out the warm side, because the warm side has lower air pressure due to the rising heated air pulling away from the structure. This is the thermal siphon I mentioned earlier. Your house becomes a continuous flow tube. Cool air in one side, warm air out the other, 24 hours a day with no moving parts. A homeowner in Goshen, Indiana, who restored an 1890s farmhouse with the original wraparound intact, posted measurements on a homesteading forum in 2022 showing interior temperatures of 74 degrees on a day when the outdoor temperature hit 96. He had no air conditioning. He had no fans running. He just had the windows open on the shaded north and east sides and the windows cracked on the south and west sides. The house cooled itself. His electric bill that July was $41. His neighbor in a 1990s ranch home next door paid $380. The ceiling of an Amish porch is almost always painted a specific color, and that color isn't decorative either. It's called haint blue in the American South, but the Pennsylvania Dutch version is a paler, almost robin's egg shade. The traditional explanation is that it wards off evil spirits, but the practical reason it persisted is that pale blue paint reflects infrared radiation more effectively than white in the specific wavelength range that human skin perceives as heat. A 2016 study from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory measured ceiling surface temperatures under various paint colors and found that pale blue and pale green ceilings ran 2 to 4 degrees cooler than white under direct ambient heat load. That difference, multiplied across 150 square feet of porch ceiling, translates into measurably cooler air just under the ceiling, which is exactly where your face is when you're sitting on the porch. The Amish didn't read the Berkeley study. They just noticed over generations which color kept the porch coolest and stuck with it. The roof pitch above the porch also matters, and this is where things get into territory that modern architects almost never consider. A porch roof that's too shallow traps a layer of hot air right against the ceiling, which then radiates back down onto everything below. A porch roof with a steep enough pitch, typically between 6 to 12 and 9-12 in Amish designs, allows hot air to escape through gable vents or ridge vents at the top, creating a continuous chimney effect. The hotter the day, the faster the porch roof exhausts heat upward, which means the air underneath actually gets cooler as the day gets hotter up to a certain threshold. This is counterintuitive. Most modern porches get hotter as the day progresses because they trap heat. A properly designed Amish porch reaches its thermal equilibrium around mid-morning and then maintains it through the entire afternoon, regardless of how brutal the sun becomes. Now let's talk about what happens inside the house, because the porch alone isn't enough. The porch creates the cold air reservoir, but you need the right window strategy to actually move that cold air through the building. Amish homes traditionally have what's called stacked ventilation. There are windows on the shaded porch side opened wide. There are windows on the sun side opened only at the top, which is critical. Heat rises. By cracking the upper sash on the warm side and leaving the lower sash closed, you create a deliberate exit point for the hottest air in the room. The cool porch air enters through the fully open windows below on the shaded side, sweeps across the floor where you're actually living, rises as it absorbs the heat from the room and exits through the top of the sunside windows. The room is continuously flushed with cool air without a single watt of electricity. Modern double-hung windows can do this perfectly. Most homeowners just don't know how. They open every window the same amount and wonder why their house feels stagnant. There's also the matter of interior doors, which the Amish leave open in summer and closed in winter, the opposite of what most people instinctively do. Open interior doors allow the convective flow to continue through the entire house. Closed doors create dead zones where hot air pools and refuses to leave. A two-story Amish farmhouse uses the staircase as a chimney. The cool porch air enters the ground floor, sweeps through the open rooms, rises up the staircase, and exits through the upstairs windows on the warm side. The whole house becomes a single breathing organism. And because it's breathing, it never feels stale, humid, or oppressive the way a sealed, air-conditioned modern home does after a few hours. The humidity question is worth pausing on because this is where a lot of skeptics push back. They'll say, sure, this works in dry climates, but what about the humid East Coast or the Midwest in August? The answer is in how the Amish handle interior moisture sources. They don't run dryers indoors. They don't take long hot showers without ventilation. They cook with windows open. They dry their clothes outside. And they don't have refrigerators dumping heat and humidity into the kitchen. Every interior moisture source is either eliminated or vented directly outside. The result is that even in a humid environment, the interior of an Amish home stays surprisingly dry because the only moisture entering the house is what comes in with the outdoor air, and that moisture moves through and exits before it can saturate the interior. A retired HVAC technician from Ohio posted a thread in 2021 on a contractor forum where he described visiting an Amish home in July on a day when the outdoor humidity was 90% and the temperature was 93. He brought a calibrated hygrometer. The interior humidity with no dehumidifier and no air conditioning measured 58%. The interior temperature measured 76. He said in his 30-year career he'd never seen a non-climate-controlled house perform like that, and he immediately understood why his customers in modern homes were burning through compressors every 7 to 10 years. They were fighting their houses. The Amish work with theirs. The shade trees around an Amish farmhouse are another piece of the puzzle that gets overlooked. You'll never see a mature Amish property without large deciduous trees planted on the south and west sides, usually maples, oaks, or sycamores. The trees provide additional shade in the summer, but more importantly, they cool the air around the house through transpiration. A single mature oak tree can release up to 40,000 gallons of water vapor into the atmosphere over the course of a year, and that evaporation process is genuinely refrigerative. The air immediately under and downwind of a large transpiring tree can be 5 to 10 degrees cooler than ambient. Plant a row of those trees upwind of your porch, and the air entering your convective loop is pre-cooled before it even reaches the structure. In winter, the leaves drop and the bare branches let sunlight through to warm the south-facing walls. The trees act as a seasonal thermostat that adjusts itself automatically.